ITV Lunchtime News with Nicholas Owen.
Hello. Police hunting the killer of a skydiver who plunged to his death after his parachute was sabotaged are hoping new footage, filmed moments before he died, will help them track down his murderer. Stephen Hilder is shown preparing with two colleagues just before the fatal jump. Detectives said someone in the skydiving community knew exactly what had happened to Stephen's parachute and why. Dan Rivers reports.
This previously unseen footage shows the final moments of Stephen Hilder's life. Here on the right, he practices his skydiving manoeuvres with friends just minutes before his fatal jump. The video's been released to coincide with a TV reconstruction of his murder to be shown tonight. The police hoping these images will yield fresh leads. This shows the group on the bus en route to the airfield, Stephen apparently in high spirits. And this is him enjoying a fancy dress party the night before, wearing a blonde wig, singing and dancing with other skydivers. The police think someone here may hold the key to the mystery of why his parachute cords were deliberately cut, leaving him to fall 13,000 feet to his death.
We're appealing for anybody who's still got information to come forward and speak to us, but also that we believe that the person who killed Stephen may have told another person, or indeed may have acted strangely. So we're appealing for that person to come forward and talk to us.
Stephen, an army cadet, was a passionate skydiver. Earlier this month, his parents paid this moving tribute.
Steve lit up our lives with his enthusiasm, energy, humour and physical presence.
Stephen Hilder died doing something he loved. The police now hope their fresh appeal to the skydiving community will prompt someone to come forward. Dan Rivers, ITV News.
The holiday plans of tens of thousands of travellers are hanging in the balance this lunchtime. Talks to try to resolve a dispute between British Airways and its check-in staff have gone on all night. They'll resume this afternoon. If they fail, an official strike seems likely. Well, Romilly Weeks is at the conciliation service ACAS now. Romilly.
Well, Nick, in today's newspapers, there's this full-page advert taken out by the chief executive of British Airways, apologising unreservedly to the passengers caught up in the weekend walkouts. What British Airways haven't been able to promise their passengers, though, is that there'll be no repeat of the strikes later on in the summer.
They talked all night, the unions and BA, at the conciliation service ACAS. When they emerged in the early hours, there was no agreement, although there was some optimism.
The talks were constructive. It was in a very good spirit. Both sides recognizes the importance of the occasion, and both sides make a significant contribution to moving the issues forward. And I'm satisfied that it was a very genuine and constructive night's work.
The atmosphere in the discussions has been constructive and positive, and we've made progress. We've agreed to start talking again later today, and we're very much looking forward to those further discussions.
The electronic clocking in system at the heart of the dispute has now been introduced at Heathrow, although staff who refuse to use it are not being disciplined. It's taken 4 days to clear the backlog of cancelled flights from the weekend walkouts. British Airways could ill afford a repeat of scenes like these over the summer. But 2 out of the 3 unions are already threatening to ballot their members on further action, both at Heathrow and at Gatwick. The stakes are high for when the talks resume later today.
Those talks will take place here at ACAS at 5 p.m. If they don't come to a resolution, there is the gloomy possibility of further strikes, coinciding with the August bank holiday, the busiest time of year for both Heathrow and Gatwick.
Romilly, thank you. The killing of Saddam Hussein's 2 sons has failed to put an end to the daily ambushes against American troops in Iraq. 3 more soldiers died this morning in the second fatal attack in northern Iraq since Uday and Qusay were killed. It comes as the Americans prepare to release pictures of the dead men's bodies. Our international editor Bill Neely reports.
From triumph to disaster for these American troops of the 101st Airborne Division. After storming this house and killing Saddam's 2 sons, several of their vehicles were ambushed with rocket-propelled grenades, and 3 of the soldiers inside were killed. Saddam's supporters had vowed revenge for Uday and Qusay's death. The revenge came quickly. And revenge is what's being threatened against the man in the blue scarf. He's the owner of the house where Saddam's bloodline was cut. The Americans are now protecting him. Neighbours say he betrayed the two sons for the reward of more than £20 million. This is where Uday and Qusay made their last stand. 10 anti-tank missiles ending their resistance. They died in a humble squalor they'd never experienced in life. Iraqis still can't quite believe it. So the Americans are about to show them graphic proof.
There will be pictures released. We haven't decided.
Soon, though, Iraqis will see the corpses for themselves.
Well, I think the security situation will certainly improve as a result, because I think it would have persuaded a lot of people that there's absolutely no way of the regime ever coming back.
They've cut his bloodline. Now they're targeting Saddam's lifeline. The US convinced he's in northern Iraq. They killed 2 other Iraqis in this car. 5 American troops have died since Saddam's sons were killed. Tension still high. Hopes and aggression high on both sides. Bill Neely, ITV News.
A few minutes ago, I spoke to our correspondent Juliet Bremner, who's in northern Iraq. Juliet, with the killing of Saddam's sons, I suppose many people would think that the attacks back on the American army would start to fade away, but that's obviously not happening.
Well, it doesn't appear to have happened. 3 soldiers were killed overnight, an attack in the early hours of this morning. But I have to say, talking to soldiers here outside the villa where the 2 men were killed, I don't think they thought that this would suddenly bring an end to the violence against them. What they do think it will do is send a message loud and clear to the Iraqi people that they can hunt these former dictator and his sons, his family down. And it may persuade somebody else to come forward and let them know where Saddam is. That's the real goal, because once they've gathered the entire family, whether alive or dead, as in this instance, they hope that that will then make the people who are carrying out these guerrilla attacks realise that there is no leadership, there is no point, that there's nothing to fight against.
Juliet Bremner in Mosul, thank you very much. In the last few minutes, ITV News has learned more details about the judicial inquiry into the death of Dr. David Kelly. Our senior political correspondent is at Westminster now. John, what can you tell us?
Nick, I can tell you that Lord Hutton hopes to begin hearing evidence, or at least to open the inquiry, perhaps at the end of next week, at the latest then in the week after that. We know also that most witnesses will not be giving evidence in the full glare of the television cameras. It will be in public, but there'll be no cameras allowed for the most part of the hearing. And in terms of the timescale of it, we believe the hearing might last anywhere between 2 to 6 weeks, which might mean the report itself not coming up until 12 weeks' time from now. We know that Tony Blair, of course, is back at his desk assessing the situation. The other key development this morning is that evidence given by Andrew Gilligan to the Select Committee last week is now not going to be published. Instead, that will go straight to the Hutton inquiry.
That's Andrew Gilligan, the BBC reporter involved. Yes, John Ray, thanks very much. A new police database is being launched today to help detectives in their hunt for paedophiles and their victims. Hundreds of thousands of photographs of children will now be available on file. It will enable officers to identify youngsters and keep track of investigations nationwide. Well, I'm joined now by Jim Gamble from the National Crime Squad. Mr. Gamble, this database, explain it. Why is it so important to you?
It means that we no longer have to become involved in the very time-consuming manual processes that we used in the past, where we would take images and edit them and then share them with colleagues throughout the UK and beyond, and then follow that up with telephone calls to discuss with them whether they recognised any of the potential victims or perpetrators in the images we'd sent.
There is an impression around, perhaps it's wrong, you tell me, that the police are being rather swamped by this whole subject and finding making inquiries very difficult.
Well, the child-based database that we've launched today is one of the smarter processes that we'll be applying. We won't have to work so hard to deliver immediate analysis, identification of images, and thereby follow up and rescue victims from real-time abuse. Of course the police are under pressure. The Operation OR inquiry of itself delivered 7,000 suspects, and there's a real weight of responsibility on us in respect of how we deliver that policing response. We're not overwhelmed. We're working in partnership as never before. The National Crime Squad are working with the Association of Chief Police Officers, the other centres of excellence throughout the United Kingdom, to deliver a coordinated response. And this is about that coordination. It's about how we can capitalise on IT solutions to help us operate in this new environment.
Mr. Gamble, thank you very much. With more news still to come this lunchtime, including
film Twins.
He did strip down to his underwear and then pushed me onto the bed and wouldn't let me go. I felt ashamed and humiliated, and honestly, I felt helpless because there really wasn't anything I could do.
Schwarzenegger, who has admitted some inappropriate behaviour on what he called rowdy sets, claims he's the victim of a dirty tricks campaign.
I was shocked. I said to myself, well, this is the puke campaign that they're talking about, because people want me. People always say this, Arnold, don't get into politics, because they're going to try to attack you, they're going to try to tear down your character and all those things. But you know something? I don't let them tear down my character. I'm going to move forward.
But the man Arnie is trying to terminate, the incumbent Democrat Gray Davis, says he must answer the allegations.
The question gets down to this. Are all 15 women and their families lying, or is Mr. Schwarzenegger not telling us the truth?
In the recall election, Californians must first vote to oust Governor Davis. If they do, Schwarzenegger is still the leading candidate to replace him. Kevin Dunn, ITV News.
Here, a Liverpool footballer has become the latest victim of the escalating gun violence in Britain. 20-year-old John Otsemoba was shot and injured while out drinking with friends in Liverpool city centre. He's now been released from hospital. Now, we often say this, but I think it's true. This could only happen in America. Called to a New York flat, the police had the shock of their lives when they found a huge Bengal tiger living there. The predator was sharing the space with a 3-foot alligator. Absent was the flat's owner. He was in hospital with a large bite wound. Catherine Jacob has the bizarre tale.
Heavily armed, the NYPD weren't taking any chances, and little wonder when this is what was waiting for them. Meet Ming, a 350-pound Bengal tiger who's been living in this Harlem apartment for the past 2 years. The police and the local zoo were called in after Ming mauled his owner, but what they found took everyone by surprise.
We get calls that maybe there's a lion here or a tiger there, and it's never been the case. It was beyond imagination. How could this guy have a tiger in his apartment?
Once they'd evacuated the building, an officer armed with a tranquilizer gun and live ammunition abseiled to the 5th floor to see what they were up against. Look and listen carefully here. That's Ming defending his territory. Eventually, Ming was sedated and removed from the building. But once inside, officers discovered he'd had a playmate, a 3-foot alligator named Al. He too was tracked down and taken, along with the tiger, to the zoo.
It's a very large cat for being inside in a 3,000-person complex that held a tiger. I mean, it was kind of crazy. There was 5th floor up. There was no way to get this cat down.
As Ming and Al adjust to life at the animal sanctuary in the semi-wild, their former owners still recovering in hospital. But police have told shocked residents here that once out, she faces criminal charges of reckless endangerment. Catherine Jacob, ITV News.
Must have been so crowded in there. Now, over to ITV News.